So, for my ISU presentation, I will be talking about the topic of the influence of media on sport. My thesis for this topic is how sports entertainment is presented and the impact media has on society and its professional athletes. Now, the subtopics I'll be going over are reporting methods, the sports as entertainment industry, broadcasting rights, media conglomerates in sport, the media's positive and negative impact on sport, and how media on sport impacts us as individuals. Now, while the impact radio had created on broadcasting media was significant, it pales in comparison to that of television. In the year 1952, the first NHL hockey games came to the viewers at home in Canada. With this newfound method of distributing sports media to its viewers, sports rules were reshaped with a redesign of the players' uniforms and equipment. The duration and tempo of sporting events had been altered. These effects refashioned the elite sporting event, both in the stadiums and the broadcast versions, as a fast-paced, advertisement interspersed entertainment vehicle that is televised live or tape delayed and streamed online and on mobile platforms. Now, moving on to the next subtopic, we have the sports as entertainment industry. The large growth of this industry had been led by many technical advances in television and broadcasting. The action displayed in any game or competition in sport is only one portion of the overall entertainment package offered to viewers as part of a telecast. Although roughly 30 years ago, things such as sport extras, which involved teams of celebrity play-by-play announcers, pre- and post-game analysis sessions, highlights from other games played simultaneously, instant replays, and in-depth player profiles were never around, in comparison to how common they are now. Majority of professional sports leagues games are being broadcasted in high definition, with enormous screens offering crystal clear digital pictures. Additionally, this would be recorded on digital video recorders, allowing viewers to control live TV broadcasts and save memorable games. Furthermore, many in-game stats are also accessible on the internet which cannot be included on TV broadcasts, as well as video clips and/or highlights can also be viewed on mobile devices. Additionally, advertising and sports have now become completely inseparable, as sports advertising has virtually become an entertainment event in itself. A very popular example of this would be the annual NFL Super Bowl, having the CBS network charge large quantities of money for advertisements to be displayed for a 30-second commercial at a highly viewed event. Many companies and brands also pay for banners to be displayed throughout arenas, such as on the borders of a hockey rink or on a baseball field. Now, the next subtopic is on broadcasting rights. What broadcasting rights means is the financial agreement between an organization that hosts an event in the medium, such as television, radio, or internet, that provides coverage of that event to a large audience not physically present at the event venue. The primary relationship between professional sports and the media is the sale of broadcasting rights for games. These television and media organizations pay huge sums of money for the exclusive right to broadcast live sporting events. This also involves copyright-related rights, particularly those relating to the broadcasting organizations. The connections with news networks is having the exchange of both parties benefiting with both the business side and the publicity side of it. A couple examples of this being the Olympics of 2012 in London. They had the Rogers media companies such as CTV, TSN, the French networks, Sportsnet, OLN, and the Rogers radio stations pay the International Olympic Committee $153 million for the rights to broadcast the games throughout Canada, in exchange for having the coverage broadcasted on their mediums. Another example of this is with the NFL's Hockey League, and the value of their broadcasting rights ever increasing for many other mediums, as shown in the graph all the way up to 2014. Now here's the next subtopic on media conglomerates in sports. There are generally 6 major media conglomerates that own many of the sports mediums that distribute game broadcasts out to its viewers. These conglomerates are National Amusements, Disney, Time Warner, Comcast, News Corp, and Sony. Additionally, many sports teams also have their own mediums for sports as well. A well-known example of this for us is with Rogers Communications acquiring a share of almost 40% of the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, the company that owns the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto Raptors, the Toronto Marlies, and the Toronto FC soccer team. Rogers had already owned Toronto Blue Jays of Major League Baseball prior to owning MLSE, along with Bell Canada, who owns another 30% of MLSE. The two companies now own the majority of a sports franchise with the worth of approximately $2 million. The benefits to MLSE with these partnerships is the assistance of working with communications companies to televise and broadcast each event, publish and print material out for them, and post information online. Though Rogers' takeover has made some fans of the MLSE uncomfortable, it is wise from a business perspective to eliminate competition for the quote-unquote sports fans' dollar, but not very beneficial for the consumers. The second to last subtopic is the media's positive and negative impacts on sport. Social media in modern times plays an important role in how fans follow their favorite sports. Sports fans can now follow the in-game action through highlights and clips posted online and uploaded onto YouTube. With this, it has the ability to greatly affect a fan's engagement in sports, with having it readily accessible in our pocket or hand. This has helped to increase participation in sports media, with the main source being our smartphones or laptops or any other mobile device. Moreover, through social media mediums such as Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, people are able to view the latest scores and stats within seconds of action. But, more importantly, they now have the ability to connect with the athletes themselves through direct social media exchanges over the internet. This helps build stronger relationships with the public for sports organizations and helps maintain the viewers' loyalty to watching live games, and it allows them to directly market to their viewers. Lastly, also through the help of social media, people are able to create communities online. In addition to communicating with athletes, there are also the rest of the fans themselves that are able to connect with one another through mutual interests. Now, in contrast to the positives of sports media, there are the negatives. The negative effects of sports media is on, firstly, the athletes themselves, with having the majority of their games displayed through live broadcasts and having clips reposted up onto the web for any critics to see. It allows for any failure they make in-game to be documented and saved online for anyone. The same goes for any official that makes a wrong call. That can increase the overall pressure that is placed on the officials and the athletes to perform well and to please their viewership. In addition to the pressure, this can also increase the risk of violence for players and even the spectators. When it comes to any sport, people almost always prefer to win, and the same goes for the fans wanting their favorite teams to win. This increases the level of tension from each game and player, and can make it much harder on the officials to do their jobs. With all of this and the connection to social media, any comments or remarks on performance on the players can now be posted and sent to them directly, as well as the negative and hateful ones, which is never beneficial unless it is helpful criticism. Now, the final subtopic on sports media is how media on sport impacts us as individuals. In this slide, I had found a TED Talk by Peterson discussing how sports and the media influence our beliefs, and found a portion of this video to be quite insightful on this topic. Peterson goes on to talk about how sports takes up a large portion of the coverage distributed to us. Approximately 25% of newspapers are devoted to sports. Because of the information provided through the media to us, it has impacted what we think is important, and it influences how we formulate public opinion. Media not only provides us with this content, but we also help the spread of it, which only further increases its importance to us. This is even stated by Peterson, as quoted, that the media does not thrive without sports, and sports does not thrive without the media. They are both codependent on one another, and we are a part of that. One thing that attracts us most about sports media is the drama and conflict involved. We find sports appealing because it doesn't always end in our favor. It makes us keep coming back to it for a better outcome in the next game. Another thing about how we are attracted to sports media is that the media tailors the sports for our interests to keep us drawn into it. So for this next slide, this would have been the activity that I had created for the class. And this activity would have extended off from the previous slide on how sports, media and sports impacts us as individuals. And I started off by saying sports media can have both a positive and negative effect on society. And I would have then split off everybody, or they would split off themselves into groups of 3 to 4 to then discuss through the following 4 questions, starting off with why are sports media important to people, and then how is the media able to attract us to sports, and then next is would sports be able to thrive without media, why or why not, and the last question would be, do you believe that sports media is beneficial to society, why or why not. So I wanted to have everybody split off into smaller groups just to discuss their own opinion on this topic, because for sports media, or how media impacts sports, sports impacts media, this topic on how it impacts us is more of a individual topic to discuss. So I had them break off in smaller groups to just discuss their own opinions and go through it themselves, because this topic highlights more of how it benefits them or maybe negatively impacts them in their own way, and how they formulate their own opinions, what they think is important, if they're involved in sports or not, and maybe connect with some of these questions or some of what Jason Peterson would have discussed in his video, and then the clip that I had chosen for that. And then we would have gotten back together as a group. As I said in the bottom, we will then discuss these questions with the class. Be sure to have your group participate at least twice throughout this discussion. I wanted to have everybody just involved in discussing their own opinions freely, maybe if it made them more comfortable being in small groups, and then finally getting all together, expressing all their opinions at least however many times is available within the rest of the 15 minutes that I would have had provided. And yeah, so that's on the final topic for sports media impacts us, and that's the activity that would have followed. And now to summarize what we've gone over, so to conclude with the thesis of how sports entertainment is presented and the impact media has on society and its professional athletes, sports takes up a great portion of today's media through many mediums, such as newspapers, radio, TV, and the internet. Large sums of money are gained through agreements made between organizations and media coverage by broadcasting games, online posts, and in-game statistics, etc. Media displayed to the public at its root is owned by major media conglomerates, as well as the sports companies themselves. And lastly, media on sport has the ability to impact the athlete, officials, and even the spectators/fans in both positive and negative ways, such as beliefs, values, etc., and their own opinions. And now that then concludes the presentation that I have on media's influence on sports. And here are just the works that I have cited for the information that I found. Thank you for listening.